Imagine $1 million vanishing into thin air every single minute. That's the staggering cost of unfair trade practices chipping away at the American dream. We see the casualties every day: shuttered factories, once bustling towns reduced to ghost towns, and the hollowed-out lives of hard-working Americans left behind. But where does this wealth disappear? The answer is often found on the decks of cargo ships, stamped with foreign flags, carrying goods produced at a fraction of the cost, often under questionable labor and environmental standards. This isn't about healthy competition. It's about a rigged game, where the rules are bent and sometimes broken to benefit a select few. However, a quiet revolution is brewing. America is starting to fight back, wielding a controversial weapon: tariffs. Are these tariffs a desperate last-ditch effort, or a long-overdue correction to a system designed to benefit everyone but the American worker? The answer is far from simple, but one thing is clear: the status quo is unsustainable. The stakes are high, the debate is heated, and the outcome will determine the future of the American economy and its place in the world. The year is 1994. Bill Clinton, with a confident smile, signs NAFTA into law, ushering in an era of free trade agreements that promised to lift all boats. The world was flattening, borders were blurring, and the American worker was told to embrace the future. Fast forward to 2001, and China, the sleeping giant, joins the World Trade Organization, setting in motion a seismic shift in the global economy. The hope was that integrating China into the rules-based trading system would lead to greater openness and fairness. The reality, however, proved far more complicated. Then came 2016, and the election of Donald Trump, a businessman who campaigned on a promise to bring back American jobs and put America first. His weapon of choice: tariffs, a word that sent shivers down the spines of economists and ignited a fierce debate that continues to rage today. The Trump years were a roller coaster ride of trade wars, shaky deals, and a fundamental rethinking of America's role in the global economy. But the questions remain: has America been taken advantage of? Are tariffs the answer, or are they a blunt instrument that will ultimately do more harm than good? For millions of Americans, the debate over tariffs isn't about abstract economic theories or geopolitical maneuvering. It's about putting food on the table, keeping a roof over their heads, and holding on to the hope of a better future for their children. They've seen their jobs shipped overseas, their communities crumble, and their way of life vanish. Central to this narrative is China, a country that has experienced an unprecedented economic rise, fueled in part by what many argue are unfair trade practices. From allegations of intellectual property theft and forced technology transfers to accusations of currency manipulation and state-sponsored subsidies, China has become the poster child for everything wrong with the current global trading system. But it's not just China. From Mexico to the European Union, concerns about unfair trade practices abound. NAFTA, once touted as a win-win, has left a bitter taste in the mouths of many American workers who saw jobs disappear south of the border. The debate over tariffs is ultimately a debate about values, fairness, reciprocity, and the social contract between a government and its people. It's about whether the rules of the game are rigged to benefit the few at the expense of the many. And it's about finding a way forward that ensures a level playing field and a brighter future for all. Tariffs, those seemingly arcane levies on imported goods, are far from a modern invention. They've been a tool of statecraft for centuries, wielded by governments to protect domestic industries, punish economic rivals, or simply raise much-needed revenue. Think of them as a toolbox, with each type of tariff serving a specific purpose. First, we have protective tariffs, the workhorses of domestic industry safeguarding. By slapping a duty on goods coming from abroad, governments aim to make domestically produced goods more appealing to consumers, thus shielding homegrown businesses from the chill winds of foreign competition. Next up, retaliatory tariffs, the sharp-edged tools of international trade disputes. These tariffs are less about protecting domestic industries, and more about sending a message, a firm rebuke to trading partners engaging in what are deemed unfair practices, like dumping goods below cost or stealing intellectual property. Finally, we have revenue tariffs, the simplest form of this economic lever. Here the primary goal isn't protection or punishment, but rather cold, hard cash. Governments impose these tariffs to bolster their coffers, using the proceeds to fund government operations or specific projects. Understanding the different flavors of tariffs is crucial to grasping their historical significance and the heated debates they continue to ignite. From the earliest days of the Republic to the age of globalization, tariffs have played a pivotal role in shaping the American economy and its place on the world stage. Section 2. A Nation Built on Tariffs, from Hamilton to Lincoln. The story of tariffs in America is deeply intertwined with the nation's very founding. Alexander Hamilton, the nation's first Secretary of the Treasury, recognized the need to nurture fledgling American industries and saw tariffs as a crucial tool for achieving that goal. His vision, enshrined in the Tariff Act of 1789, laid the groundwork for a system that would shape the nation's economic destiny. Throughout the 19th century, tariffs remained a cornerstone of American economic policy, often sparking fierce debates between those who championed protectionism and those who advocated for freer trade. The industrial North, eager to shield its burgeoning factories from foreign competition, generally favored higher tariffs, while the agricultural South, reliant on exports, often took the opposite stance. Enter Abraham Lincoln, who, faced with the unprecedented financial demands of the Civil War, turned to tariffs as a vital source of revenue. The Morrill Tariff of 1861, passed just days before the first shots were fired at Fort Sumter, raised tariff rates significantly, providing a much-needed lifeline to the Union war effort. The decades following the Civil War saw continued fluctuations in tariff policy, reflecting the ongoing tug-of-war between protectionist and free trade advocates. Yet tariffs remained a key element in the nation's economic arsenal, shaping industrial development, influencing regional economies, and fueling the fires of political debate. Section 3. The Smoot-Hawley Specter, a cautionary tale of protectionism. As the Roaring Twenties gave way to the Great Depression, the siren song of protectionism grew louder. Enter the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930, a piece of legislation that would become synonymous with the perils of unchecked protectionism. Facing a deepening economic crisis, Congress, in a misguided attempt to shield American industries from foreign competition, enacted steep tariff increases on a wide range of imported goods. The results were catastrophic. Instead of providing a much-needed boost to the American economy, the Smoot-Hawley Act backfired spectacularly. Trading partners retaliated with tariffs of their own, igniting a global trade war that deepened the Depression and exacerbated its devastating effects. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act stands as a cautionary tale, a stark reminder that even with the best of intentions, protectionist measures can have unintended and disastrous consequences. It serves as a constant warning to policymakers that in a globalized economy, seemingly isolated actions can ripple outward, impacting businesses, consumers, and entire nations. The legacy of Smoot-Hawley continues to loom large in discussions of trade policy, a specter haunting any attempt to erect barriers to trade. It underscores the delicate balance between protecting domestic interests and fostering a healthy global trading system, a balance that remains as relevant and challenging as ever in the 21st century. Section 1. The China Syndrome, a cocktail of concerns. When it comes to unfair trade practices, China often finds itself at the center of the storm. It's not just the sheer scale of China's economic ascent that raises eyebrows. It's the tactics employed along the way. A cocktail of concerns that have left many questioning the fairness of the playing field. From allegations of intellectual property theft and forced technology transfers to accusations of currency manipulation and state-sponsored subsidies, China has come to symbolize the anxieties many feel about the downsides of globalization. The narrative is complex, with nuances often lost in the heat of political rhetoric, but the underlying concerns are real and have tangible consequences for American businesses and workers. Critics argue that China has benefited disproportionately from its integration into the global trading system, exploiting loopholes, flouting rules, and engaging in practices that undermine fair competition. They point to the massive trade deficits the U.S. has accumulated with China, the loss of American manufacturing jobs, and the hollowing out of communities as evidence of a system rigged against them. The challenge for policymakers is to address these concerns without resorting to protectionist measures that could harm the global economy and ultimately hurt the very workers they are trying to protect. It's a delicate balancing act, requiring a nuanced understanding of the complexities of international trade and a willingness to engage in tough negotiations with China and other trading partners. Section 2. The Art of the Steel Intellectual Property on the Line. One of the most contentious issues in the US-China trade relationship is the alleged theft of intellectual property. American companies, from tech giants to small businesses, have long accused China of engaging in a systematic campaign of cyber espionage and forced technology transfers, siphoning off valuable trade secrets and undermining American innovation. The numbers are staggering. The Commission on the Theft of American Intellectual Property estimated that intellectual property theft from China costs the U.S. economy between $225 billion and $600 billion annually. This theft takes many forms, from hacking into corporate networks to forcing American companies to hand over valuable technology as a condition of doing business in China. The implications go far beyond lost profits. Intellectual property theft undermines American competitiveness, stifles innovation, and puts American jobs at risk. It erodes trust in the global trading system and creates an uneven playing field where Chinese companies, often with the backing of the state, can undercut their foreign rivals. Addressing this issue requires a multi-pronged approach, including strengthening intellectual property protections, enhancing cybersecurity, and engaging in robust diplomacy to hold China accountable for its actions. Failure to do so risks ceding the future of innovation and economic leadership to a country that seems all too willing to play by its own rules. Section 3. Currency manipulation, playing fast and loose with the yuan. Another contentious issue in the US-China trade relationship is China's management of its currency, the yuan. Critics accuse China of artificially depressing the value of its currency to give its exporters an unfair advantage in global markets. By keeping the yuan weak, Chinese goods become cheaper for foreign buyers, making them more competitive and potentially displacing American-made products. While China has taken steps to liberalize its currency regime in recent years, allowing the yuan to fluctuate more freely against other currencies, suspicions of manipulation persist. The U.S. Treasury Department has repeatedly labeled China a currency manipulator, accusing it of intervening in foreign exchange markets to gain an unfair trade advantage. The complexities of currency markets and the opaque nature of China's intervention make it difficult to definitively prove manipulation and quantify its impact. However, the potential consequences are significant. Currency manipulation distorts trade flows, undermines fair competition, and can contribute to global imbalances. Addressing this issue requires a coordinated international response involving dialogue, cooperation, and potentially sanctions. The U.S., working with its allies, must continue to pressure China to adopt a more market-oriented exchange rate policy and to refrain from engaging in practices that distort trade and harm the global economy. Section 4. A subsidy arms race propping up inefficiency. China's economic rise has been fueled in part by a vast system of state subsidies, providing cheap loans, tax breaks, and other forms of support to favored industries and companies, often state-owned enterprises. While all countries engage in some form of industrial policy, China's approach is seen as particularly distortive, creating an uneven playing field and undermining fair competition. Critics argue that these subsidies prop up inefficient industries, create overcapacity, and lead to the dumping of goods on global markets below cost. This not only harms foreign competitors but also distorts global supply chains and can contribute to economic instability. The World Trade Organization, WTO, has rules against trade-distorting subsidies, but these rules are often difficult to enforce, especially in the case of China, where the lines between the state and private enterprise can be blurred. Addressing this issue requires a multifaceted approach, including reforming WTO rules to better address non-market economies like China's, strengthening enforcement mechanisms, and potentially imposing countervailing duties on subsidized goods. It also requires a recognition that simply complaining about China's practices is not enough. The U.S. must also invest in its own competitiveness, supporting innovation, education, and infrastructure. Section 5. The NAFTA narrative: jobs, wages, and the flight south. While China often dominates the headlines when it comes to unfair trade practices, the North American Free Trade Agreement, later renegotiated and rebranded as the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, has also been a lightning rod for controversy, particularly in the context of its impact on American jobs and wages. Critics argue that NAFTA accelerated the offshoring of American manufacturing jobs to Mexico, where labor costs are lower and environmental regulations are often less stringent. They point to the closure of factories, the decline of unions, and the stagnation of wages as evidence of NAFTA's negative consequences for American workers. Supporters of NAFTA counter that it has boosted trade, lowered prices for consumers, and created jobs in sectors like services and agriculture. They argue that the agreement's impact on manufacturing jobs is overstated and that automation, not trade, is the primary driver of job losses in the sector. The debate over NAFTA's legacy is complex and multifaceted. While the agreement has undoubtedly had both winners and losers, its overall impact on the U.S. economy is a matter of ongoing debate. The challenge for policymakers is to address the legitimate concerns of those who have been left behind by globalization, while recognizing the benefits of trade and the importance of maintaining strong economic ties with Mexico and Canada. Section 1. The Steel Gauntlet: Trump's Tariff Wager. In 2018, Trump imposed hefty tariffs on imported steel and aluminum, aiming to protect national security and revive the American steel industry. U.S. steel production increased, but higher steel prices affected manufacturers and consumers. The tariffs highlighted the complexities of using such measures to achieve economic and political goals. Section 2. A Trade War Truce: The Phase 1 China Deal. In January 2020, the U.S. and China signed the Phase 1 trade deal, a fragile truce in a trade war. China agreed to increase purchases of American goods and address some intellectual property concerns. The deal's impact remains uncertain, especially with the disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Section 3. Silicon Valley on the defensive: Biden's tech tariffs. Biden has imposed restrictions on exporting advanced semiconductors to China, citing national security. These measures aim to slow China's progress in cutting-edge technologies and bolster U.S. semiconductor manufacturing. The tech tariffs reflect a growing recognition of the need to protect American technological leadership. Section 4. A Tariff Boomerang: Unintended Consequences and Retaliation. Tariffs often lead to higher prices for consumers and can disrupt global supply chains. Retaliation from trading partners can result in a tit-for-tat trade war, harming businesses and economies on both sides. Section 5. Winners and Losers: The Tariff Scorecard. Tariffs have provided a temporary boost to certain domestic industries but have also increased costs for others. Consumers face higher prices for imported goods, contributing to inflation. Retaliatory measures have harmed American exporters, particularly in agriculture. Tariffs often result in higher prices for everyday goods, affecting American consumers. The cost of items like washing machines and minivans has increased due to tariffs on imported components. Economists warn of creeping inflation, eroding purchasing power. The uncertainty of global trade relations threatens the American economy. Retaliatory tariffs have hit American farmers hard, especially those who relied on exports to China. The Trump administration's subsidies provided only temporary relief. Farmers face lost income and uncertain futures due to shattered trade relationships. The agricultural sector grapples with the unintended consequences of tariffs. The trade war strained alliances with countries like Canada and the European Union. Metals tariffs prompted retaliation and chilled relations. The tit-for-tat tariffs created uncertainty and animosity. Rebuilding trust and cooperation will be a long process. Proponents of tariffs argue they level the playing field and protect American jobs. They believe tariffs are essential to revitalizing key industries and maintaining economic dominance. Economist Dr. Peter Navarro and Senator Marco Rubio are vocal advocates. They call for a more assertive approach to trade. Opponents of tariffs warn they hurt consumers and businesses. Dr. Christine McDaniel argues tariffs are taxes that raise prices and invite retaliation. Free trade advocates highlight the benefits of globalization. Nobel laureate Dr. Paul Krugman cautions against protectionism. Pragmatists advocate for a balanced approach to trade. Ambassador Susan Schwab calls for smart trade using all available tools. Dr. Chad Bown emphasizes the need for a comprehensive strategy. Tariffs should be used judiciously as part of a broader economic plan. The tariff debate, at its core, is a debate about the soul of the American dream. It's about the promise, etched in the nation's founding documents, of opportunity for all, of a fair shot at a decent living, of a future brighter than the past. But somewhere along the way, for many Americans, that dream has started to feel out of reach, replaced by a gnawing sense of vulnerability, of being left behind in a global economy that seems to benefit everyone but them. The shuttered factories, the hollowed-out towns, the anxieties of a generation struggling to make ends meet, these are not mere statistics on a balance sheet. They are the very real consequences of policy choices made over decades, choices that have reshaped the global economy, often at the expense of the American worker. The question now is not whether to retreat from the world, to embrace a nostalgic vision of isolationism that ignores the realities of a globally interconnected economy. The question is how to engage with the world, how to fight for a fairer shake, how to ensure that the American dream remains a tangible reality for generations to come. The tariff debate is not just about dollars and cents, it's about values. It's about fairness, reciprocity, and a level playing field. It's about whether the rules of the global trading system should be written to benefit a select few, or whether they should be designed to uplift all nations and all people. The allure of cheap goods, while tempting, often masks a darker reality, lax labor standards, environmental degradation, and a race to the bottom that undermines the very foundations of a just and sustainable global economy. The challenge for policymakers is to strike a balance, to craft trade policies that promote economic growth and opportunity without sacrificing the values that define us as a nation. It's about demanding fairness from our trading partners, holding them accountable for their actions, and working to create a global trading system that benefits not just the wealthy and powerful, but all who seek a better life. The path forward will require a nuanced and multifaceted approach, one that recognizes the complexities of the global economy while remaining steadfast in its commitment to American workers and communities. It will require a willingness to engage in tough negotiations with our trading partners, to stand firm on our values, and to demand reciprocity and fairness. Beyond tariffs, a comprehensive strategy must include investments in education and workforce training, infrastructure improvements, and support for innovation and entrepreneurship. It must also prioritize environmental sustainability, ensuring that economic growth does not come at the expense of the planet we share. The challenges are real, the stakes are high, but the American spirit of innovation, resilience, and a commitment to fairness has never been stronger. By charting a course that prioritizes the well-being of all Americans, we can navigate the complexities of the global economy and build a future where the American dream remains within reach for all.